So, parallel lights. Now, unless you're projecting caustics into the bottom of a swimming pool, an effect that's covered in another video, then you're probably going to find that you don't really have much use for parallel lights. Bryce, on the create shelf here, claims to have 4 parallel lights. So we've got this one here, which is the round parallel light and the parallel light, and we've also got round parallel light and square parallel light, which in all likelihood is 4 more parallel lights than you've ever thought of using. And in truth, I say Bryce claims to have these lights because some of them don't really behave as you would expect them to. So this is what this video is going to be about, the behaviour of these parallel lights, or so-called parallel lights. So I'm going to create a cylinder here, and just put it in our scene and lift it up a bit, and the first thing I'm going to look at is sunlight, which should, because the sun is a very distant object, behave as a parallel light would. So I've just moved the sun over to the left hand side there, and you can see the shadow cast, I'm looking from above, is of equal distance, or appears to be. It's probably very slightly tapered, but from all intents and purposes the sunlight is an infinitely distant light source in Bryce. So you can see that we've got equal thickness in the shadow. Now I'm going to disable the Bryce sun, get that out of the way, and introduce a point light source. So this is a point light source. I'm just going to put it in front of our cylinder here, lift it up a bit, so we're going to cast a bit of light down, edit it so we've got no fall off, switch this to render in scene and turn the light level down a bit because it's a bit strong, and then look from above again. Okay, our point light source has this behaviour. You can see the shadow is tapered. It's narrower closer to the light source and then spreads out. So if the light source is quite close, the tapering becomes more exaggerated, and as you move it away, as you would expect, the tapering becomes less exaggerated. And if you could move this far enough away into the outer world, then you would have effectively a parallel light. Now we'll start with this round parallel light, one of the original ones that is a legacy light. So I'm going to rotate this round so it's pointing at my cylinder, enlarge it a bit and point it down. Okay, so I'm just arranging this, and then we'll switch to the view above. Notice that it's all a bit dim. Edit this, increase the intensity, take the fall off. So I actually reduce the intensity because I've turned fall off to none, then it'll give out enough light so we can see what we're doing. So here, okay, we've got an oval on the ground, that's fair enough, but with 2 effects occurring that are noteworthy. 1, the shadow is tapered, and 2, the light falling on the ground, there's a light gradient, even though I set the fall off to none. So something's happening there that you wouldn't expect. Now I'm going to move this back and we'll look again. Okay, right, I have moved it back and there is less exaggerated taper on the shadow, but the oval looks about the same. If I could move it exactly, it would look exactly the same. Right, I'm going to move it in now, and the tapering effect has become more exaggerated, and it's closer still, more taper, but the oval remains more or less the same. If we get it in the same position, then it should look more or less the same. So this is a bit odd. What's happening here is that the light source is behaving rather like shining a torch down a toilet roll tube. The outer circle of this shape, this round light, is remaining parallel, clipping the light, but the light source itself is a point light source. So if I got this close enough to it and was able to squash this so it wasn't, if I squash it in there so it doesn't crash into the object there, then you'll see exaggerated tapering, but not very much circle. I'll have to enlarge it so you can see more of the effect there. So this is as if the light source was very close, even though it's supposed to be a parallel light. And further away, oval remains the same size. Now it's stretched out. So that's not really a parallel light. It says it's a parallel light, but actually it's a parallel shadow. And the behaviour of this light source is very similar. So this is just instead of going through a circle, it goes through a square. I'll set this up and let's see, rendering it. I'll just brighten it. Once again, I'll set it to none, so I should maybe make that darker again now. I want you to observe this gradient. Now, this gradient, again, you wouldn't expect with it being a parallel light, because the light should be falling at an equal angle on this surface. The gradient's occurring because this is a point light source really in a square box, and so it's more perpendicular to the surface here than it is to here, in which case shading rules apply and it will seem brighter because it's getting a better angle of incidence. So not a parallel light really. What other options have we got here? I think we can do edge softness. Yes, we can do edge softness. Right, so you can do edge softness with this light and it remembers that you've done that. Can we set it to distant? No. Does any of these other controls work? No. So that's about it really. I don't think you can set it to infinite width, not in this case, even though the button will let you switch it to infinite width. That's for in a moment. So yes, we've got direction control, but it's not changing the direction. Okay, those things apply to the new light sources on the crate shelf. So we've got this round parallel light and square parallel light. They operate in very similar ways. So let's, I don't know, pick this one. Right, so this is new parallel light and it does in fact behave correctly, I'm pleased to say. So I'll get this set up as I did the others and edit it. So reduce its intensity but turn the fall off to none, and then switch back to the main view, and you can see now the shadow is perfectly parallel, of equal width, and the light arriving on the ground is uniform, so that's a really good sign. Okay, and you have other options with this. Now if you have edge softness, but it doesn't stick. Same problem as we had with the distant light source in the other video. The way to get it to accept this setting is to pop a keyframe in your animation, and then it will remember. So you can still have your edge softness. Edge softness won't apply if you switch it to infinite width, which is another option. So now it's very like having the sun in your scene, but I'll just zoom back. No, not zoom that out. I want to zoom the wireframe out. Zoom out a bit. You've got a cutoff point where the plane of light emission meets the infinite plane, and behind that you're not getting any light. Stranger things yet, you have the option of having a directional control. So at the moment the direction is directly above, and this does remember its settings, unlike the distant light, so you don't need to keyframe this. So although we've got the light being clipped off here, it's now being projected from above, so you can't even see well, you can just make out the edge of that because of perspective, because the wireframe view is not perfectly orthogonal. If it was, you wouldn't be able to see the edge of that. So you have this option of having the light. We could have the light coming from the right, but the projection source clipping it from above here, and this still applies even if it's not infinite. So if it's not infinite width, and now we've only got the challenge of trying to get it to hit the target. So you can see we're off to one side now with this, so this is a bit of a tricky and odd control to work with. So I'll get it on my object but off it now. I could have it going from the opposite direction probably, if I could organise this right. So let's see where we are with this. Oh, I need to focus my view on the cylinder, so let's zoom in on that. Back out again. So the light's now arriving from over here, so if I lower this down I might be able to get it so it lands on the object. There you go. So the light source is on one side of the object and the light's coming from the other side because of the direction control. Now I can't really think of an application for this, but it is interesting behaviour and does show how flexible the lights are in Bryce. So I suppose finally the only other thing to cover, and we'll go for the other parallel light for this one, then that will have lost all the direction controls, and that is the fact that, as with many light sources, you have the option of using gels with them. So have I managed to get the wrong parallel light here? Yes I have. I wanted this one, the proper parallel light, unless I picked that up and forgot to set it to none, probably. Let's see, because it does have fall off, so that looks the way. I probably just didn't set it to none. So none, 5, use gel. I'll pick an image up from somewhere. Let's see what I've got. Oh, this one here. Oh, Jack Tomlin's Moodgate. It's a nice model, that. Right, so there we go, we're now projecting this image from our parallel light, and you can see that when you make it infinite you get an infinite repetition of that image. If you choose different mapping modes, I'll just brighten this up because it's not that bright now, I've put a gel on it, like for example spherical, then because of the way it's projecting off the surface it's less than useful. So some mapping modes will not really help here. Probably rotating this will have different effects. You can see it in here we've got it spherically mapped onto, well, the sphere, but if you go to actual selection you'll get some idea of what the result's going to be, and then you can see whether or not you can get anything else out of it by rotating these controls. But just because of the way it's projected in this case it's not going to help us. Likewise we're going to struggle with reflection map to get anything reasonable, but things like object space is going to work for you, and parametric probably, yes, because it relates to the square shape. So a few things to experiment with there, and essentially parametric or object space is going to be your choice if you're going to be trying to project caustics onto the surface. So we've not really got as far as creating a scene with one of these lights because they're a little bit exotic, but I was asked a question about the lights and I thought I'd better explore them and show you what you can do with them. So yes, again with this one I think with the edge softness, if I go back to a stage where I've got the edge softness, it won't remain unless you set it and then keyframe it, as was the case with the distant lights setting. For the distant lights, for some reason it just forgets its setting, so you can have the edge softness there, it just forgets every so often. So there you go, a rather rambling investigation into parallel lights in Bryce that you can find on the Create shelf. So you've got that one and that one, which aren't really parallel lights, they're point light sources in a shaped tube, and this one and this one, which do behave as parallel lights and have some interesting settings such as infinite width and the ability to control the direction independent from the light source which is generating it.